Candace Owens went on Jubilee Surrounded and made a claim that was so insane to me that I honestly could not believe it. She claimed that feminism was a movement pushed and funded by the CIA. You could take a look here.
Feminism, you wouldn't be able to exist.
Yeah, people keep saying, I hate when people say that.
But it's just the truth.
It just shows that you haven't done the research to even understand where the feminism
Or you don't know
came from,
history.
which was discovered. That's what I'm saying about you, because it means that you don't understand that a bunch of government officials in the CIA funded the feminist movement. So
And it turns out she was right. Well, kind of. Let's get into it. So here's the claim. The CIA, yes, that CIA, funded the feminist movement. And I'm surprised this claim hasn't gone more viral because it very much sounds like something that's too crazy to not be true, if that makes sense. Especially coming from an established journalist like Candace Owens. She's suggesting that the government cooked up a plan to dismantle the nuclear family and weaken men from the inside out so that they could collect more in taxes by women entering the workforce. And here's the thing, like most conspiracies, there's just enough truth to this statement to make it dangerous. Because yeah, the CIA indeed funded individuals and organizations that were involved in early feminist circles. That's not a conspiracy theory, that's on record. Candace is right about that, but the actual truth is not what she made it out to be. So let's start with Gloria Steinem, because if you're talking about the CIA and feminism, really just feminism in general, she's the name that's going to come up every time. Gloria wasn't just some random activist, she was feminism for a lot of people. So magazine covers, talk shows, speaking tours, she was everywhere. She was like the Beyonce of her time, and was absolutely working with the CIA. So that part in particular really isn't up for debate. She admitted it. The group she was working for was called the Independent Research Service, which looking back actually does sound like a fake company from a spy movie. And I guess technically it is. I guess it was. Anyway, her whole job was to send students to youth festivals to counter Soviet propaganda. And Gloria, she helped organize all that. And this wasn't like a surprise to her either. Like the CIA, she knew the CIA was backing her, and apparently she did not think it was a big deal. She even went on record to say that she found the CIA was liberal and honorable, which honestly, a little bit of a red flag, but you know, it is what it is. Does that make her a Fed? No, not necessarily, but it is weird that the biggest feminist of all time was on the government's bankroll, right? That's just honestly weird, especially when that same government was actively destabilizing countries and assassinating leftist leaders around the world at the same time. But here's the thing, the claims that Candace makes and people like Candace, the issue with the claims is that she's asserting that because the CIA funded Gloria, because she funded feminism, that proves that feminism was never real in the first place. That the whole thing was just some top-down operation designed to take men down. And really, that's just, I don't know, that's just lazy thinking. Sure, Gloria worked with/for the CIA, and that's, you know, unfortunate. I won't deny that. Gloria working for the CIA is not the same thing as the CIA invented feminism, right? There's a huge gap there. And the reality is really a bit more simple. It's just that powerful people, powerful organizations, they always try to co-opt popular movements for their own gains. They hop on board after it's already moving, then they try to steer it somewhere, I don't know, safer, somewhere a bit more clear waters, safe harbors. And really, if you look at how feminism got sanitized and sold to suburban white ladies in the mid-70s, it really worked, you know? But really, before we get to any of that, the question we gotta kind of address is, why was the CIA funding feminism and Gloria Steinem in the first place? Really, we should be clear here, there's no illusions, and no one needs to pretend that the CIA was absolutely not concerned about women's rights, right? That was not their primary concern. They're not just gonna fund a social rebellion out of the kindness of its heart. Like, obviously, it's about something else, and that something was communism. And I guess really back then, everything was about communism, but this was like really about communism. Back then in the 60s and 70s, the CIA and the US in general was really terrified that young people were going to start swinging left and start adopting Marxist and leftist ideas. So the CIA in turn, they started to play a bit of a culture war. They started funneling money into magazines, art, music, student groups, basically anything that looked liberal but non-threatening. And obviously not because they believed in any of it, but because it was better than the alternative. They didn't want revolutions, they wanted vibes. Palatable, American, capitalist-friendly vibes, which we will get into in just a little bit here. But back to Gloria, the fact that we see her on their payroll, it really just came down to strategy. Controlled opposition, something that looked like grassroots movements, but wouldn't threaten the existing system. And that's really kind of the playbook, right? You give people just enough ground to make them feel heard, but you never really risk any real change. Don't give them any power because, you know, they might mess something up. It's like when you let your little brother play Street Fighter with you on an unplugged controller. And looking back on all this, it really kind of worked. A lot of the more radical energy from the 60s ended up getting diffused, and things that might have pushed towards socialism or real structural change got steered towards safer alternatives. So yeah, feminism did get a platform via the CIA. But it was more so like the approved version of feminism. It's kind of like how Coca-Cola is now the approved type of Coca-Cola. Bring back the good stuff. If you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, back to Candace. Is she full of shit? Yes. obviously, but in like a very specific way here. She's not lying about the CIA connection. That's real and it's documented. And if her claim was simply that the CIA funds movements and arts and things in general to affect culture for their own personal gains, then yeah, that would be 100% true. That's a fair claim. There'd be nothing, I wouldn't even make this video because she's right about that. But that's really not what she's doing here. She's doing what she always does, taking a complicated, messy truth and boiling it down to something dumb and inflammatory. Something that'll hit on TikTok and make people with podcast equipment start, dancing around like they just discovered fire. Because this is what people like Myron Gaines or whoever, this is what they do. They find a truth, they strip away all the context, and then frame it like some giant red pill revelation. Oh, the CIA funded feminism. That's it. That's the headline. And now suddenly, feminism isn't a reaction to centuries of oppression. It's just a government op designed to destroy men somehow. But like I said, it's a mischaracterization of the truth. The CIA did not invent feminism. Women didn't need a government grant to realize they were being screwed over by society, and the movement really kind of birthed itself. The CIA saw that it was growing and growing rapidly, and they did what they needed to do to manage the outcomes. In short, it was a genuine demand for change from real people with real stakes. But for people like Candace, that truth really does get in the way and really kind of takes away from the story they're trying to sell, right? And that's the story or the idea that men are the victims now and that traditional values are under attack and that women currently have too many options. And I get people latch on to this narrative, like the CIA narrative, or just in general that the government is funding every movement in society because, like I said before, I'll admit that they do affect culture by funding it to their own gains. But to really kind of simplify everything and to say that, the CIA controls every movement of society, it really kind of simplifies our society into like a cartoon, right? And once you're living in that fictionalized world, that fictionalized cartoon, everything becomes someone else's fault. Feminism ruined marriage. Women are unhappy because they have jobs. Men are lost because the CIA wants us to pay more taxes. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, come on, seriously. Like I said before, I'm not denying the government meddles in culture, the CIA meddles in, culture to make movements go the way they want, but the truth is also that people get angry and they rebel. That's true. I don't get why people can't accept that as the truth, right? It's true. So yes, Candace entirely wrong? No, I'll admit that. She was right that the CIA did fund the feminist movement. There's no point in denying that because it's on record. But the assertion that the CIA birthed feminism or that feminism in general is just a government operation to control men and get us to pay more taxes, that's just not correct. And I don't want to push that narrative any further. All right, well, that's it for this video. I'm your host, Vermillion. Remember, we live in the story to tell ourselves. Until next time, bye.